Hi guys, I'm going to try and do this video very quickly. I hope that you can hear me clearly. Sometimes the sound isn't that great, but basically I'm going to try and whip through all these stories as quickly as possible. North Korea nuclear threat. Is the US preparing for war? More drills are expected this week. That started today. The United States, Japan and South Korea will reportedly continue their preparations for nuclear war starting today with 2 days of missile tracking drills. The exercise will mark the sixth time the three nations have practiced tracking ballistic missiles together as North Korea ramps up its weapons programs. North Korea has fired 23 missiles in 16 tests since February, including its most advanced weapon yet, an intercontinental missile, which is said to be capable of reaching the United States, that was launched on November 29th, which I talked about. To protect their citizens from the weapons, the US, Japan and South Korea have been conducting drills in which they share information on keeping track of the missiles. In October, the United States installed its Terminal High Altitude Area Defense THAAD system in South Korea. It is designed to find and shoot down short, medium and intermediate range ballistic missiles upon their re-entry into the atmosphere, but its arrival angered Chinese officials who worried the system's powerful radar could threaten their country's security, and protesters in South Korea fear the system will lead to environmental and health problems. It is unclear whether the controversial THAAD system will be tested in this week's drills. Japan is also preparing for war with North Korea by installing a new missile land-based interceptor system, the Aegis Shore. Together, the three nations have repeatedly slammed Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un for his multiple missile tests and have sent several stern warnings to Pyongyang. Following last month's intercontinental ballistic missile test, United States UN Ambassador Nikki Haley warned that North Korea would be utterly destroyed in a nuclear war, and President Donald Trump cryptically told reporters that America would take care of it before vowing to impose new sanctions on Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un's regime. South Korea on Sunday announced new unilateral actions against North Korea, including barring any financial transactions between 20 institutions and a dozen individuals that are believed to be supplying money for the weapons of mass destruction or illegal trading of sanctioned items. The move, however, is mostly symbolic since trade and financial exchanges have been restricted since 2010 when a South Korean warship was torpedoed, an attack that North Korea has denied. North Korea slammed Trump as a mentally deranged dotard on Saturday for his reckless, wicked act of recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Meanwhile, the US Geological Survey said a North Korean nuclear test in September may have been so powerful that it moved the Earth's crust with its aftershocks. Next report, and you'll have to bear with me. I had to shut my computer down and let it reload again, so some of these websites are going to have videos playing, which I'm going to cut off as soon as they start playing, but it slows my PC down. So China is preparing for a catastrophic refugee crisis as North Korea melts down, and I have no words on the screen. Excuse me, guys. What happens when you buy a budget laptop worth investing if you want to avoid these kind of things. But basically, China is preparing for upwards of 1 million refugees to flood into the country as they escape the madness of neighbour North Korea. Shocking new documents revealed 5 sites were being readied for massive refugee camps along the China-North Korea border. They show that the Changbai branch of Beijing's largest mobile company has tested signal strength at 5 of its sites, which are identified as potential refugee settlement points by local authorities. According to a document that went viral on Chinese social media, preparations took place because of the tense situation along the North Korean border. According to the Financial Times, Shanghai, northeast China, is so close to North Korea that it felt the tremors from Kim Jong-un's most recent nuclear test. So there you've got China preparing for a possible refugee crisis by kind of installing like 5 settlements along its border with North Korea and testing mobile signal strength there. So the next story is North Korea in hot phase. Russia will act with China and India to protect Kim Jong-un's regime in the event of World War III. So Russia has warned the standoff between the US and North Korea is moving towards a hot phase as fears continue of World War III. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the risk of tensions escalating were very high, and he announced Russia, China and India were ready to intervene in the conflict. Mr. Lavrov insisted the rout over Pyongyang's missiles program could only be solved through diplomatic means. He was speaking after a ministerial meeting between Russia, India and China, Mr. Lavrov warned, we shared our opinions regarding the situation on the Korean Peninsula that remains extremely tense. We
If
pointed
the
to the
missile is
absence,
3 meters longer, the overall weight is...
We pointed to the absence of an alternative to the solution of the specified problem solely by political and diplomatic means in line with the Russian-Chinese roadmap. Diplomatic tensions have soared between Washington and Pyongyang again in recent weeks over Kim Jong-un's military ambitions. So basically that story is just based that Russia, India and China will back up North Korea in the event of World War III. There's been some speculation as to whether Russia would side with North Korea or with the United States. There's been some speculation over whether China would intervene in such a conflict. And they said previously that they would not intervene if North Korea were the first to launch a strike, but now it appears that they would intervene regardless of the situation. And now we have India stepping into the picture, which is not too surprising for me because I did report a while ago that India and Russia held joint war games together. So obviously they're allied with that side of things. And if in the event of any sort of conflict, as you can see there, they would step in, which would create quite large problems. 49 countries have broken sanctions with North Korea, including the USA. North Korea remains under strict United Nations sanction imposed due to Kim Jong-un's reluctance to back down over his nuclear weapons program, but it can now be revealed 49 countries have flouted the international rules, according to or including the United States. So it's particularly interesting that all these countries are talking about trying to reduce the conflict on the Korean Peninsula, and they've gone about doing that by going through UN sanctions. However, you've got 49 countries that are basically not adhering to them, and that includes the United States. So a new report from the Institute for Science and International Security has found that 49 countries violated sanctions on North Korea to varying degrees between March 2014 and September 2017. And of those, 13 governments, including Cuba, Egypt, Iran and Syria, were involved in military violations. That includes either receiving military training from North Korea or being involved in the import and export of military equipment. However, the range of nations involved in breaching non-military sanctions is much broader, from importing and exporting sanctioned goods and minerals to aiding shipments by reflagging vessels. Other breaches also include the involvement of front companies as well as other business activities like financial transactions, and even France, Germany and Japan are on the list among those who have violated United Nations rules, along with Ireland, Poland and the United Arab Emirates. The report also reveals a further 13 other countries were targeted by North Korea to procure equipment with potential military applications, including Canada, the United States and Denmark. In some cases, the national government or even the provider may not be aware they are ultimately supplying North Korea. So North Korea is getting what they need regardless of the sanctions. It just goes to show that sanctions, they don't really work. They're not really working in relation to what you're trying to achieve. So, you know, after diplomatic means, which is usually sanctions, there's only kind of like one other option, which is military. North Korea warning, regime's new submarine. This is frustrating. Excuse me. Do I have to watch the whole thing? Sorry guys, we're just gonna have to watch this advert. As I said, I'm in a bit of a rush, so I'm not gonna be able to stop and start again, make this video again. Just have to, there we go. Sorry about that. So North Korea is developing new submarine-launched missiles, which could expand its ability to threaten US territory. North Korea first tested an SLBM in 2016, but never revealed any specific related to the missile. New satellite images suggest Pyongyang is developing longer submarine-launched missiles that could hit Guam. Experts now fear that North Korea developed a new type of submarine-launched missile, which would put the US territory of Guam in range. If the missile is 3 meters longer, the overall weight is likely to be 28 tons. The Korean Aerospace University professor told Arirang News if the Pongsang, I'm not saying that right, but you know what I'm talking about. The Pokosong one's projected range was 1,600 kilometers. The new one could have a range of up to 4,000 kilometers. That would put Guam within its range. Satellite images of North Korea's main military shipyard in Sinpo showed fervent activity taking place in the area. In July 2016, Pyongyang hinted it was working on developing new weapons as it intentionally leaked pictures of an allegedly more powerful missile, the Bokusong-3. It comes as the United States, Japan, and South Korea announced that they will be holding missile tracking drills as tensions continue to escalate in East Asia. The large-scale drills by US and South Korean forces that North Korea said made the outbreak of war an established fact. The hermit state has defiantly continued its testing of ballistic missiles as angry rhetoric tyrant Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump continues, or angry rhetoric between tyrant. Sorry, it's written wrong on the news report, so I'm reading it wrong. Mr. Trump has said the US could take military action against the regime, promising fire and fury, as we remember. So it appears that they're now shifting their focus, well, not shifting, but adding the potential threat of North Korean submarines. And we know the fact that submarines will be involved in the attack on the United States when it comes, if we are interpreting what is in the IPEC GOAT video and various other media correctly. Then we know that submarines are involved, and it appears that North Korea, they have loads of submarines already, but they're developing even more submarines. So we'll see what happens regarding their potential submarine launches. Now we're kind of moving over to the Middle East. In Israel, the EU tells Netanyahu it rejects Trump's Jerusalem move. Now, if you remember in the Bible, it says that part about being offered up to be afflicted and killed because of the belief. So it appears that that is going in the correct direction, according to Bible prophecy. For those of us who believe that that particular prophecy from Jesus is talking about now rather than some events that happened before. People have different beliefs, people have different interpretations. I respect all of that. I have my own, and that's what I'm presenting now. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took his case to Europe to ask allies to join the United States in recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, but met a firm rebuff from EU foreign ministers who saw the move as a blow against the peace process. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, meanwhile, took his own case to Egypt on Monday and was expected to fly to Turkey for a meeting of Muslim countries this week, cementing support from leaders who say the US move was a dire error. President Donald Trump announced last Wednesday the United States would recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, breaking with decades of US policy and international consensus that the city's status must be left to Israeli-Palestinian talks. So it appears that, they're just kind of being fed to the wolves. Donald Trump has announced that the Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, and that sparked a whole wave of protests and violent demonstrations across the Middle East. And now Israel is, turning to the EU to say, are you going to kind of back up Donald Trump here? Are you going to agree with the United States? And it's a firm no. They're not going to. So that, to me, would be kind of like just throwing Israel into the fire, just letting them kind of roast in the fire. But, according to the Bible, we know that God returns to save Israel from complete devastation. So it just appears that this is all predestined, and we're just kind of along for the ride, really. Next one. Israel authorizes PM to declare war. So in line with the rejection from the EU and Donald Trump announcing that Jerusalem is now Israel's capital, and the whole situation tipping over the edge in the Middle East, the Israeli Ministerial Legislative Committee yesterday approved a bill authorizing the Prime Minister to declare war or launch military operations. Now, according to the IPEC GOAT video, we may have a situation where Israel attacks first or they retaliate against an attack. Which one of those scenarios happens is up for debate. But in that event, Prime Minister Netanyahu has just been authorized by the Legislative Committee to be able to declare war. And that means, as I'll read on, the new bill allows the government to allow the Prime Minister to declare war or undertake a military operation with approval only from the cabinet, even without all its members present, without having to receive approval from the entire coalition, which is very important because obviously in coalitions you have people that disagree and you have people that agree with whatever you're presenting. And in this fact, he's able to continue with a declaration of war without the approval of all of the coalition, and all of the members don't even have to be present. So it's kind of giving him unilateral authority to take that step if necessary. So the bill came as a recommendation of a special committee assigned by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, aimed at developing ways of taking decisions by the cabinet in regard of national security issues. So there we are. We have new authorization for Benjamin Netanyahu to basically declare war whenever he feels, and he doesn't need approval from the cabinet, and all the members don't have to be there for him to do that, which is a huge step. The next one is taking a trip over to my neck of the woods, which is in London. I focus a lot on America and the Middle East and the Korean Peninsula. My brain is all over the world, and rarely do I actually do any videos of things that happen in London. But this caught my eye, and I thought it's definitely worth mentioning. Israeli embassy in London hosts hazardous chemical incident training, which is kind of coincidental considering what Donald Trump just did for Israel and what's happening in the Middle East against Israel. Now we have a chemical incident training going on in London outside of the Israeli embassy. So emergency teams in biosuits descended on the Israeli embassy in a training exercise for a hazardous chemical incident. A cordon was put in place and decontamination tents were erected at the back of the building in central London, yards from Kensington Palace. Paramedics in full biosuits treated casualties played by members of the Royal Military Police who were put through decontamination showers. Now, I just want to stop there for a second because I just want you to remember that part, that paramedics in full biosuits were treated and they were played by the Royal Military Police. So if they are going to try a false flag, it could be a situation where they show video from this, I'll call it a scene, that they've acted out with paramedics treating casualties, but those casualties aren't real. They're played by the Royal Military Police. So just put a little pin in that, just in case you see any news reports talking about any sort of biological chemical attack in London, near the Israeli embassy. I would caution you to take that with a pinch of salt as to whether it's real or to whether it's a false flag attack. But police, paramedics and fire crews all took part in the event on Sunday to test the emergency service reaction to an attack or accident involving a toxic substance. So just remember, just keep a pin in that, just in case any reports do come up about any sort of attack, you'll know that it was premeditated, and footage that is shown, or any footage that could be potentially shown, may be just actors in order to, I don't know, maybe support Israel in some form of preemptive attack, or to gain support to support Israel in the event that they're attacked first. I don't know, but I thought it was worth mentioning. So the next story is US officials see biological weapons. Again, we're on the biological chemical side of things, but this time we're going back over to North Korea. They are now looking at North Korea with suspected biological weapons, and they're saying that they have a program which poses a rapidly intensifying threat. And this is amid the heightened tensions of the nuclear threat on the Korean Peninsula. Pyongyang has long been suspected of conducting a biological warfare program in tandem with its nuclear program, but US officials and analysts say new factories and labs suggest the program is further along than previously thought, and Kim Jong-un may be ready to use chemical or biological agents on US or South Korean troops. The capabilities, the science and technology, all of that now exists. One senior US official was quoted as saying, Kim has chosen not to deploy at this time, but ultimately it comes down to a political decision. The official said US and South Korean intelligence agencies suspect Pyongyang has experimented with bacterial strains that cause anthrax, cholera, and plague. And I did a report on that a while ago. It's in one of the videos. I don't know which one. There's been quite a lot over the last couple of months, but that's all winding down now to the end of December, where, as I said before, I will stop making these videos if nothing has occurred during that time, just because it is draining. It is a lot of reports come in every day, and I sift through them in order to find the important stories, the ones that I should be alerting people about, and it is tiring. So North Korean submarine missile threat prompts US-led military drills, and I already covered the fact that they're now looking at the submarine threat more seriously. But the missile drills that they're conducting from today till tomorrow apparently is in line with this new submarine threat, amid fears that North Korea is rapidly developing its submarine-launched ballistic missile technology. The United States, Japan, and South Korea are teaming up for a drill to track such hard-to-detect missiles, military officials said on Monday. The drill is taking place over 2 days in waters between Japan and the Korean Peninsula, said South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, and will involve destroyers from the three nations doing computer-simulated training to track submarine missile launches by North Korea. And I think that's important because the previous stories that were coming out about this, it appeared that the tracking of these missiles wasn't anything to do with submarines, rather just like a land-based ballistic missile launches. But now we're getting a clearer view that the submarine threat, they're looking at more seriously, and they're conducting these drills in order to try and combat that threat. The drills come in the wake of news reports that North Korea is making progress developing submarine-launched ballistic missiles, or SLBMs. The website 38 North, based at the US-Korea Institute at Johns Hopkins University, obtained images of cylindrical objects, evidence that suggests construction of a new submarine at a facility on North Korea's east coast. We have no idea how far along they are in that program, if that program is already completed, and we don't even know if the submarine is in position already for a potential attack. If the attack is to come this month, I would expect the submarine already to be at sea, and for, as I mentioned before, for something like this just to be a distraction. And as I mentioned before as well, there's been an increase in activity from Russia around the Atlantic region, and that could be a cover for North Korea slipping in, or it could even be a Russian submarine that does the deed. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to note that this is all going on, and to keep in mind that if this does kick off, everything has been planned already, and all we're trying to do as watchers on this YouTube community is trying to anticipate what their plans are so that we can get the word out there. One, to try and save lives, but not just to do that, but also to let people know that this wasn't random. It was something that they've planned, and they planned it for a long time. Where we go from here, I really don't know. Now we move on to a new story that I only just got wind of, which is the pipe bomb that explodes in New York subway. Now I just wanted to note the fact that, sorry, things are doing its own thing. Just note the fact that just yesterday, I made a video about the 11th, and I put the date in the title just to say to keep watch on the 11th. And we have a terrorist attack that happened in New York. A 27-year-old man set off a pipe bomb strapped to his body during the morning rush hour on Monday, deep inside one of Manhattan's busiest computer corridors, the police said. The blast echoed through the subway tunnels just off Times Square and filled parts of the Port Authority bus terminal with smoke as commuters fled into the streets to escape what the authorities quickly concluded was an act of terror. And then this is a picture of the suspect here. I haven't picked up any reports of any injuries occurring to people, but I just found it interesting that this whole situation, kicked off not only in New York, but on the 11th as well. So I feel kind of encouraged to keep looking and to keep warning as much as possible. And I think that a lot of us out there, we're getting dates right in terms of things happening on that date, but we're not getting the event right. We're not getting the location right. Unfortunately, those things are really hard to try and interpret. But looking back at some of the history, I mean, November 29th, talked about on November 29th, North Korea launched their most powerful ICBM after 2 months of silence. And then we talked about the 3rd of December, and on the 3rd of December is when they kicked off that Vigilant Ace exercise with over 230 aircraft and over 12,000 personnel taking part. We had the 5th of December as well, and that was the day that Donald Trump announced Jerusalem as Israel's capital. And then we got the 11th, and a pipe bomb explodes in New York. So, I know news happens every day and things happen every day, but not everything makes headlines, and not everything is, kind of connected together. And these things are all kind of connected. So I thought it was worth just mentioning that, and I hope there are no casualties after this event has taken place in New York. Although I don't believe it will be the last event to take place in New York. It seems as if they're trying to prepare the public for another terrorist attack, because you had or bigger than a terrorist attack, more like a war kind of scenario. You had the guy driving to the people on the sidewalk with his van, and then you've got the pipe bomb explosion taking place today. It just seems a little bit, mental programming in terms of an attack taking place on New York. And not to mention, obviously, I did that video on Wendy Williams as well, when she collapsed, and that just screamed out subliminal messaging to me. New York going down, darkness, all that. So the next story is one that's a little bit unusual, but I thought it's worth mentioning considering it's Kim Jong-un and he has belief in, these kind of things. So he visits this Mount Paektu, and it's the same mountain that his father used to visit before making important, significant decisions. It's actually a dormant volcano. But the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited Mount Paektu on Friday, a sign that he may be planning a significant act in the near future. Kim visited the mountain and ordered the site managers to construct hospitable accommodations on the mountain for visitors. A visit to North Korea's most mystical mountain often precedes significant decisions by North Korean leaders. In November 2013, Kim visited the mountain with his aides. It was a month before he executed top officials, including Jang Song-taek, his uncle and political guardian. He visited the mountain again in April 2015, just before executing Chung Yong-chol, a former defense chief. He had also made a pilgrimage after North Korea's 5th nuclear test in September 2016. His father did the same. He visited the mountain right before announcing in 1974 his list of 10 social decorum, which includes the commandment that the people remain completely loyal to the head of state. Kim also visited the mountain just before executing Kim Tong-koo, then senior official for international affairs, in 1977. And Kim Jong-un is following in his father's footsteps in visiting the mountain at times of important decisions regarding the state. So I thought that was important to mention, because obviously if they have some form of belief where they travel to this mountain before or directly after they make important decisions related to their country, then this could be a warning sign, as the headline says, that there's something major coming soon if he's visiting this mountain. It's not just like a holiday home. He doesn't just take trips there to have fun. It appears to be it has some sort of spiritual significance for the Kim family. They travel there, make important decisions, and then carry them out. So I don't know if that relates to a potential nuclear launch or some form of launch or provocation that may come, but it's worth mentioning considering it has a history. There's a history there. Now, this coming up to the last couple of minutes of this video, and this one is relating to the California wildfires that are still raging, still going on, and I just wanted to play this video very quickly.
We're facing a new reality in the state where fires threaten people's lives, their property, their neighborhoods, and of course, billions and billions of dollars.
So I just wanted to play that for you guys because I thought it was important to let you guys know that it appears from, I know California isn't any stranger to wildfires, but this is like the 5th largest wildfire they've had on record, and it's not even finished yet. It's only like 15% contained, and that's just one fire. There's 5 of them burning at the moment. It relates, I think, and other people out there think as well, to this IPEC scene, this chalkboard. Now, I've covered this chalkboard quite a lot. I've done some videos on it, the things that are revealed in the background, like the demon heads and the man possibly holding a gun behind whoever president this is supposed to represent. I think it's Donald Trump, as it's got the D on the hat, although the D stands for dunce hat, which is what this is. It could have a double meaning Donald Trump. And if you go back and watch the video, it's got chalkboard in the title, so you'll be able to find it. But there's apparently what looks like a gun here behind his head, which leads to a man holding it. There's a couple of demon heads on the board as well, which may represent possession or something relating to demons, or just the fact that this is a demonic video. It's also geologically relevant because if you think about, this being the north, the east, the south, the west, you've got fires burning in California, which is on the west coast, maybe represented by this house. Only one person has died in this fire so far. So this is more about buildings burning in California at the moment and less of lives being taken. So this burning building, it could represent the fires that are currently going on in California. And then you've got on the east coast this shark, which represents a missile coming out of a submarine. Or this could actually represent the submarine itself, but the way it's leaping, it's a shark. Sharks don't leap, so you imagine this is leaping out of water, which represents a missile. In relation to the stories I've already conveyed to you today about Kim Jong-un visiting the mountain regarding important decisions that he may take in the near future, the the drills that they're doing for ballistic missiles from submarines, the fact that North Korea, they're doing reports now that North Korea's submarines are highly advanced, the uptick of naval activity from Russia as well. It appears that we're kind of living the IPEC scene at the moment. Fires burning on the East Coast, and if this is related to December, because I mean it's also got a D on the hat that could also relate to December. As I said, there's so many meanings you can take from these videos. Well, from this video particularly, I call it, it's not just double meaning, it's layered meanings, it's fully layered. So all I'm saying here is that we have fires burning on the West Coast at the moment. That seems to be depicted in the IPEC GOAT video. If we connect the fires burning on the West Coast to everything else that's going on in relation to North Korea and China and Russia and Iran and the Middle East, we we may expect a missile launch sometime soon. It appears these two are drawn on the board at the same time. Yeah, so it could be saying that at the same time as the fires are burning on the west coast, there'll be a missile launch from a submarine on the east coast. Not only that, but another missile, which will be an ICBM, is coming over from somewhere else. Whether that's North Korea, Russia, or China, I don't know, or even Iran, I don't know. But that seems to be what the scene is depicting. Wildfires are burning on the west coast, a submarine-launched missile on the east coast, and an intercontinental ballistic missile also on the east coast. And that is my video. I hope it wasn't too long for you guys. I hope you managed to stay awake and really focus on the points that I pointed out in this video today. I won't be attaching any dates to this one. I did a date video yesterday, and that currently runs from now up until the end of the month. So there'll be no need to install any more dates on this video. As I said, if it comes to the end of December with nothing happening, that'll be the end of my interpretation videos. I might post other videos, but I probably won't. But this is just my warning. If this is correct, then we're expecting 2 missile launches, one from a submarine, one from land, and that has to happen while there's fires burning on the west coast. So before the fires are put out in California, there'll be missiles on the east coast. And that's just looking at it from the interpretation there. God bless you all. I hope to see every one of you in heaven, should we all get there. God bless.